a new chapter for him, an opportunity to live a youthful life with someone that's very beautiful.
They were headed back to Southern California to celebrate their first Thanksgiving together.
The smell coming out of the bag was not something you can describe.
So the coroner investigator comes out, and he said, "This is a human."
And the lifestyle that she thought she was going to live was all a lie.
Things started to fall apart a little bit.
She wanted payback.
I did all this in 2 hours. Shut him up.
That's strange. And not only strange, that is insane.
I couldn't believe I did what I did.
In the city of Costa Mesa, the California dream is alive and well.
Costa Mesa is a relatively small town, and it is sunny all the time. A lot of people will settle in Costa Mesa because they can be so close to the beach without having to buy really expensive property.
It's around 2 p.m. on December 1st, 1991, when Costa Mesa resident Jose Escoval calls 911. He tells the operator of a concerning interaction he just had with his ex-girlfriend.
Jose receives a knock on his door.
He did look out the window and see a red Corvette in his driveway. Didn't recognize the car. He opened the door, and it was a former girlfriend, somebody that had lived with him on and off. He'd broken up a year ago, but still maintained a relationship. She was very disheveled, very upset, had gloves on her hands, wanted his help. So he invited her into the apartment, and she sat down and basically told him she wanted to elicit his help, his car, to get rid of her husband's body.
He says, "Hold on, just stay right there."
And as soon as he was able to get out of her presence, he went straight to a payphone to call the police and say, "Hey, I need some help."
He identifies the woman as Omaima Nelson. Her husband's name is Bill.
Police dispatchers told him to stay put. An officer would meet with him very soon.
Born in 1935 and raised in Texas, Bill Nelson left a big impression.
Bill was a flamboyant kind of a man. He drove a red Corvette.
He was a dyed-in-the-wool Texan, known for his red cowboy boots and big belt buckles, and gregarious personality, fun to be around, liked to engage people, had a very bubbly personality, told tall tales and things of that nature.
This guy was larger than life in more ways than one. I mean, we're talking 6'4", 230 pounds, wearing red cowboy boots and a red hat. And many people, they took to Bill.
Bill Nelson had several wives, and he had kids with those wives, and he had grandkids with those kids. His first wife, I believe they lived in Florida, and his second wife in Texas, his third wife in Texas.
To earn a living, Bill was a jack of all trades.
Bill Nelson was a pilot. He crop dusted. He had a knowledge of computers to the point where he could take old ones apart and reassemble them and then at some point sell them. He also worked for a mortgage company.
By the early 90s, Bill was living in California. In the fall of 1991, he met a beautiful young woman who was also half his age.
One night at the pool hall, Omaima, she walks in, just kind of perusing the place. He said, "Who is that? Those high cheekbones, that beautiful hair?" She was this Egyptian goddess, and he wanted to know more. Omaima was born in southern Egypt along the Nile River, kind of near the Sudanese border, and she was really born into a village that was really poor.
Omaima was raised in a Muslim household. She was devout. She met a oil worker while she was back in Egypt, and they started a relationship. When her mother heard that the relationship was getting kind of serious, she insisted that they get married. And at some point after the marriage, he was called back to Houston, Texas, and she accompanied him.
Around age 18, Omaima is faced with the possibility of the American dream, to live a totally different life. When she arrived, she spoke minimal English. Imagine being in a country where you are not able to stand up for yourself, you're not able to communicate your basic needs outside of your partner, you rely on him for everything.
He turned out to be a violent man. So she became a battered woman at 18 here in America. She managed to get help from a battered women's shelter and get away from him.
In 1987, Omaima left Texas and headed for California.
After divorcing her first husband, she moved in with her sister in San Clemente, California, located south of Costa Mesa. And she took up several jobs, one of which was being a model at some lingerie place in the mall.
She was a beautiful, beautiful woman with high cheekbones and, people would look her way. But the money wasn't coming in fast enough. She wanted more. She was attracted to these older men. To her, they provided protection, they provided stability, and they provided money.
Omaima had the belief that if she found a nice older man, that man would both take care of her and be kind.
And at 23 years old, Omaima met 56-year-old Bill Nelson at a bar.
She sees a big old statuesque guy. He was commanding the entire room, telling his stories, had everybody captivated.
Bill wooed Omaima with his cowboy persona and promises of a better life.
He may have mentioned that he, lived a lavish life, had a red Corvette, may have even owned a cattle ranch.
For Mr. Nelson, I imagine this romance was a new chapter for him, an opportunity to live a young, joyful, youthful life with someone that's very beautiful.
Once Omaima and Bill Nelson met each other, they were inseparable for days at a time, even a couple of weeks before he decided, you know what, I want you to meet my family. So they took a road trip to Arkansas and Texas, and that's where his family was. And on that trip, they made a big decision. He made the decision to propose to her, and not just propose, but within a day, it's time to get married.
And he drove to Phoenix, Arizona, where a justice of the peace married him.
The newlyweds continued their road trip, sharing the good news with Bill's family.
Omaima was elated. She finally found a family that she felt like she gelled with. She really felt this sense of belonging thanks to Bill, her new husband.
Following the road trip, the couple looked forward to spending the holidays together.
They were headed back to Southern California to celebrate their first Thanksgiving together.
But 3 days after Thanksgiving, Omaima's ex, Jose Escobar, calls 911 to report that Omaima showed up at his doorstep, asking him to help move Bill's body.
Police dispatchers told him to stay put, that they'd have officers running over to his house on Monte Vista, but an officer would meet with him very soon.
While Jose waits at the payphone, officers head to his home.
When police get to Joel's residence, Omaima's inside. And one of the officers goes inside to speak with her, start asking her some questions.
She's dressed all in black. She's got a black blazer on, black pants, even black leather gloves on her hands.
When asked about her husband, Omaima says he is out of town.
He'd spent Thanksgiving with her on Thursday, and on Friday he'd left for a business trip, and she expected him back the following Friday. Asked her kind of the circumstances around her connection to Jose, and she said she'd known him, past boyfriend. She'd come over to see if she could stay there because Bill was gone.
There was another police officer, a couple of them, outside, and that's when they spotted that red Corvette.
We looked inside the Corvette. Officer Hoke spotted a 50-gallon trash bag which was tied at the top, sitting on the front seat. So Officer Hogue removed it and set it down on the front yard grass and cut it open with a penknife. The smell is not something you can describe.
On December 1st, 1991, a bizarre scene is unfolding at a home in Costa Mesa, California.
Parked out front of the location was a Corvette, and Officer Hogue looked inside and saw a big trash bag that was tied at the top, sitting in plain view. Then Officer Hogue cut the bag open with a penknife he had. At that point, we could see a liquid substance in the bag, and the smell that was emanating from the bag was so powerful.
Meanwhile, officers find the homeowner, Jose Escoval, at a nearby payphone. Jose explains what prompted him to call 911.
About 2 p.m, somebody was knocking on the door, and he looked out, saw the red Corvette, opened the door, and it was Omaima. She removed the black gloves that she was wearing. He saw that her hands had been cut with what looked like a knife. She had bruises on her arms, on her legs, so he invited her into the apartment.
She says, "I need your help." Jose says, "With what?" She tells him that her husband attacked her and she ended up killing him.
She killed him, cut him up. She had a trash bag in the car right now and would pay him a huge sum of money if he would just help her.
"I just need to move his body." And then she offers him $75,000 and 2 motorcycles if he actually obliges. He says, "Hold on, just stay right there."
Jose left the house and found a payphone and called 911.
Back at Jose's house, a grim discovery is underway.
The whole show was this bag that was in the back of the Corvette. One of the officers had taken the bag out of the car, opened it up. I look inside the bag, and I'm not really sure what I'm looking at. It just looks kind of nasty. I said, this could be pig entrails for all I know. The thing that went through my mind, I need to identify this as human. Because I'm still thinking, this is some kind of gag. This is some kind of misdirection of some sort. I'm just still not believing that this is human internal parts that are in this bag. So we're going to need a coroner out here. So the coroner investigator comes out. We opened up a big plastic cloth to the ground, and we got the remains out onto the cloth. And then all of a sudden he says, "Hey, you better look at this." I go, "What?" He says, "Do you know what those little black spots on this organ is?" I said, "I got no idea what that is." He said, "That's carbon." I said, "It is?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "You know where that comes from?" I said, "No." He said, "It comes from smoking." And he said, "So unless you know any pigs that smoke, this is a human."
Investigators turn to Omaima.
We introduced ourselves, said obviously we don't want to really be talking out here on the street. Would you mind accompanying us to the police department for an interview? And she agreed.
But law enforcement has another priority before they talk to Omaima.
We were able to determine from her identification where she lived with her husband.
Officers immediately went over to that apartment to see if there was, somebody in distress, somebody hurt.
It was locked. We obtained a key from the manager. I decided we had exigent circumstances to enter the apartment to see if there was someone inside that was injured and needed medical assistance. Upon entering the apartment, we instantly ascertained that nothing was amiss in the living room. Nothing seemed out of place. Upon entering the bedroom, Officer Hogan and I entered together, and we saw blood spots on the side of a mattress. We then walked back out of the bedroom and entered the kitchen area, which was a mess. Sitting on the counter was a crock pot. There was a lot of dishes in the sink and on the countertop. And for some reason, I decided to open the top freezer door of the refrigerator, and I saw this round object in foil. And I tapped on it with my finger and said to Officer Hogue, "Hey, Danny, I wonder if this is his head or side of ham."
Officers with the Costa Mesa Police Department make troubling discoveries inside the home of Omaima and Bill Nelson.
We saw blood spots on the side of the mattress.
They go to the freezer, open it up, big ball of aluminum foil.
We had the right, upon entering the apartment under exigent circumstances, to look to see what's in plain sight or even in a closet. But we would need a search warrant to get back into the apartment and to make a detailed search.
As they wait for the warrant to come through, investigators conduct an interview with Omaima.
We got to the station and escorted her to an interview room. She wanted a cigarette. It was obvious that she was distressed. She was talking a mile a minute. She had cuts and bruises all over her.
I had fighting Bob.
What happened?
Well, I went for a drink and three girls fight with me there, and they got scratched.
Where's Bill away right now? Is he here in town, or is he out of town, or where is he?
He's out of town.
Did you tell Jose today that you killed your husband?
No, I did not.
What do you know about the garbage sack that was in your car?
Well, what is it?
Well, I'm asking you. What do you know about it?
I didn't know nothing about it.
Don't know anything about it? Oh.
Omaima offers an explanation.
She said Jose had, under false pretext, wanted to drive the red Corvette, had left for an hour, and when he came back, that bag must have been in it. So Jose must have put the bag in the car. Then she said she'd been to a laundromat doing laundry earlier in the day and decided to walk next door to a bar, but left her car unlocked. And during that time, somebody must have put a bag behind the front passenger seat. She didn't know anything about it. It would go from one extreme to the other. It was very non-cogent.
The interview goes on, and Omaima's story continues to change.
And then at some point she said that Bill had raped her.
He went tied me up. And I didn't know enough tied me up
What did he tie you to?
to the bed.
Did you kill Bill because he did this to you? Tell me the truth of it.
I didn't burn.
Just after 10 p.m., the interview ends, as Omaima is escorted to the hospital for a physical examination.
A search warrant was granted for the premises, and I responded over to serve the search warrant at about 2 a.m.
Investigators start in the bedroom, where the patrol officer spotted blood.
Next to what I presume was Bill's side of the bed were a pair of red cowboy boots and some boot shining materials on a rug. To the first eye, it looks okay.
The bed was made, mattress was on top. You lift the mattress and the blood was underneath it.
It's saturated with blood and the box spring. And then you realize that there was a headboard at one point on that bed, but the headboard was broken into several pieces, and it was stashed behind the head of the bed. Did a search of the closet. A small steam iron in the corner of the closet was broken. The handle was broken off of it. Wrapped up in newspaper in the closet was also a porcelain lamp that had been broken, and a crushed lampshade.
Investigators moved to the living room.
There was boxes piled up, computer parts piled up, laying around.
We saw that most all of these boxes contained trash bags, and in those trash bags were other trash bags, and in those trash bags were what appeared to be human body parts.
The disturbing scene becomes even more troubling.
We did find a box that had 2 human hands in it. It was obvious that the hands were cooked. They looked to be fried or something. Detectives were searching the kitchen, and officers started going through the refrigerator, the freezer.
They locate the large item wrapped in foil.
Take that out, open it up. It looked like a human head. I mean, that looked like a prop out of a horror movie, is what it looked like.
And also wrapped in a piece of tinfoil were genitals, male genitals. The genitals appeared as if they'd also been cooked and wrapped in tinfoil.
This is a house of horrors. It was pretty shocking.
Investigators question whether Omaima is physically capable of such violence.
The thing for me is she's petite, and I knew from Mr. Nelson's driver's license that he was, over 6 foot, 250 pounds. But in one particular box, in amongst the trash bags, were a pair of human legs, and those legs had ligature marks around the ankles. At the foot of the bed was a wicker clothes hamper full of dirty clothes, and in amongst those clothes were what appeared to be bloody garments. There was a necktie, men's necktie that was tied like a ligature. There was a section of rope that had some knots in it that appeared to be a ligature.
She says that Bill tied her to a bed, but Bill was the one with ligature marks. So everything she was saying was a lie.
On the morning of December 2nd, 1991, Omaima Nelson returns to the Costa Mesa police station following an examination at a local hospital. She is met with handcuffs.
Well, I'm going to be placing you under arrest at this time.
One.
For suspicion of murder.
I didn't kill him.
I remember driving with my partner down to the coroner's office to witness the autopsy. We get to the coroner's office, and the watch commander calls and says, "Hey, Omaima wants to talk to you again."
Just tell me what you want to tell me and I'll listen.
I think I did kill him unconscious.
You think you killed him unconscious?
Yeah, because he did this to me, and I was kind of I couldn't believe I did what I did.
Omaima claimed that her husband became physically abusive shortly after the wedding. She told police that she began to cope with the abuse through drinking alcohol and using drugs. During this time, she also told them that she started having visual hallucinations and auditory hallucinations telling her to murder her husband.
So all I remember that I hit him to self-defense or something.
How did you hit him?
I think I hit him with an arm or something to get off me.
How did you kill him?
I don't remember how I killed him.
Omaima does remember bits of the gory events that followed.
I did all this in 2 hours. Chopped him up pieces in 2 hours.
Chopped you up? Bill in 2 hours?
Yeah. And all I remember that his head was flying from his body, hit the ceiling up there, and made a blood in the ceiling. And I fall asleep, and I get up in the morning, and I found the trash bags, and I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe what happened.
She said that she heard voices. The Egyptian gods were helping her, telling her things.
She was telling me that who killed, he must die. Who killed, he be killed. And she turned around and she walked away. And the next when I get up, I checked, I find my name and his name was written by blood in the mirror. It said, "Me and you."
What was written in blood?
"Me and you."
Did you cook some parts of Bill before you wrapped him up in the plastic?
No, I'm not easily eater much either. I don't eat meat.
You don't eat meat?
No, I don't eat red meat.
You're a vegetarian?
Vegetarian, yes.
She would go from voices, I'm hearing people from the dead telling me these things, and Bill's head's here, and he's cut up, and there's body parts all over this place. She didn't really confess to anything other than she blacked out, she heard voices, there was a phone call, somebody said, look in the freezer, look in the trash bags. It didn't make any sense. There's no continuity to this thing. She was all over the map.
Well, I think you're telling me part of the truth, but not all of it.
Well, I think I need to talk to the psychiatrist to just see the loss of my mind.
We kind of sized her up as somebody that was just grasping at straws, trying to work herself out of this bad situation.
Following the interrogation, investigators get word that the coroner has positively identified the remains as Bill Nelson.
The coroner's office made a notification to next of kin. Bill's wife in Santa Maria, California was notified. He also had a son in Los Angeles.
I hate it for the family that has to even live through this because it's horrible. And truly, it is your worst nightmare.
Following her arrest, Omaima meets with multiple mental health professionals. Her story changes again and takes a shocking turn.
She was also able to provide gruesome details about the things that she did to her husband. Some of these details include dismembering her husband, boiling her husband, deep frying parts of his body.
She talked about cooking her husband, that his ribs tasted sweet. She put barbecue sauce on them and things of that nature.
That's strange. And not only strange, that is insane.
Investigators consider whether Omaima is telling the truth or setting up her defense.
It was really hard to believe that that happened. It really was.
Like one line, she was trying to say self-defense. The other line, she was trying to say criminal insanity.
It was obvious that she would throw things out and see what stuck.
Omaima's attorneys hire their own expert. In interviews, Dr. Nancy Kaiser-Boyd delves into Omaima's upbringing in Egypt.
She had a terrible childhood. She'd been sexually assaulted. Her father often beat her, and her stepmother there beat her also.
In addition to her stressful home environment, she lived in a culture during a time where female circumcision was very popular. And so this is something that she experienced very young, at 7 years old.
They took her to a dark place. She remembered it was 3 older women. Her mother wasn't there. She thought they were killing her. She described extraordinary pain and fear, and then she became unconscious. She didn't wake until her mother came and touched her. And by that time, she told me that they were preparing for her burial because they thought she was dead.
Omaima Nelson is behind bars, accused of brutally dismembering her husband of just a few weeks. In interviews with a psychologist, Omaima reveals she suffered sexual abuse, violence, and female circumcision.
We had her examined by a gynecologist, and that doctor told us that her vaginal area had a lot of scar tissue and that sex would be very painful for her.
During the trial prep, Omaima's defense team, her attorney and investigator, actually flew to this suburb of Cairo and did in-depth interviews of her family members and to kind of give a glimpse of her childhood growing up and possibly the abuses involved, to show that she'd had a series of dominating males in her life and that she'd experienced not only the circumcision but sexual assault. And so there was definitely some aspects of her past that they were trying to show contributed to this murder.
Detectives and prosecutors prepare to counter whatever defense Omaima brings to court. They speak with medical professionals who examined Omaima on the day of her arrest.
The hospital report concluded that there were no signs of rape or sexual assault.
She also mentioned that she was the one who had been held down and tied to this bedpost. No ligature marks at all around her wrists or her ankles. In fact, medical professionals said she had cuts on her, cuts that came from when she was stabbing Bill.
Investigators reach out to Bill's family, including his ex-wives.
Bill was very acquainted with family and his children. His kids would call him on a fairly regular basis, and he was just a great dad.
When I spoke to Bill's ex-wife, she spoke very fondly of Bill. And I was struck at one point that she really liked this guy. And she was deeply hurt by what happened to him.
In talking to the family, it was obvious that Bill Nelson was not a violent person. No evidence of that.
Investigators find no record of violence or abuse on Bill's behalf. Omaima is a different story.
One incident included her going to the pharmacy and grabbing whatever she wanted out of there and stealing without paying for this stuff. 2 security guards were watching her, and when they tried to stop her, she got extremely violent with them, so much so she ended up attacking them so viciously that she bit the chest of one of the women, the female security guards. She bit her breast so hard that she almost bit it off, and she also grabbed the vagina of the security guard as well.
As news of the gruesome crime spreads across the state, law enforcement gets a phone call.
Robert Hansen saw the news report of Omaima's crimes against Bill Nelson.
Mr. Robert Hansen, elderly, single, lived in an apartment, fairly successful business person. He met Omaima in a bar, and over conversation, one thing led to another, and she went home with him. Obviously, there was a relationship that started.
At one point during their relationship, they were having sex, and they were doing what she likes to call kinky sex.
She gets over there and ties him up, but instead of doing the kinky sexual thing that she promised, she attempted to rob him and pulls a gun on him. The defendant didn't tie the restraints tight enough because Robert was able to get free and escape from her. But he was so embarrassed that he never called the police. But once he saw the report in the news of Bill Nelson, he had to come forward. He couldn't keep silent because she had done something similar to him and he survived. So this wasn't Omaima's first rodeo.
Over a year after the grisly discovery of Bill Nelson's body, his wife, Omaima, is set to stand trial.
When the case goes to trial, December 1992, prosecutors immediately try to paint Omaima as this woman who wanted this lavish lifestyle that she was promised by Bill Nelson, and she was entitled to get this lifestyle.
Omaima Nelson was an ex-model, beautiful woman of Egyptian descent, very attractive, and she would seek out older men to fleece them for their money.
Bill was talking about being wealthy and owning a cattle ranch and having money, which fed right into what she was looking for. She was looking for another sugar daddy.
Following their whirlwind romance and wedding, a different truth emerged.
Things started to fall apart a little bit. She realized that Bill wasn't the man that he might be saying he is. He didn't have that cattle ranch. It became real to her that Bill had purported himself to be something other than he was.
The things that Bill promised her and the lifestyle that she thought she was going to live was all a lie. Bill didn't have any money, and she wanted payback.
On Thanksgiving Day, Tensions were high, and Mr. Nelson found himself tied to a bed.
She immobilized him under a false pretext. Probably hit him with the iron. Several times, about 30 times. The iron broke during this assault. Lamp was used, also broken. And then he was stabbed too. And then started cutting him up.
From November 28th till December 1st, she completely destroyed her husband's body.
Next door neighbor, when he interviewed him, he said he was able to hear through their common wall chopping and the sink running and the garbage disposal running, to the point where he believed that the garbage disposal had given up. This activity went on through the early morning hours, quite prolonged.
Prosecutors also call Robert Hansen to the stand.
So Robert's story shows the defendant's modus operandi, and he became a star witness in the prosecution's case against her, showing that she had previously tried to do this to someone else.
Omaima's attorneys do not attempt an insanity plea.
Her lawyer argued that this was self-defense or imperfect self-defense, which is a sudden belief that you need to defend yourself by killing the other person.
Dr. Kaiser Boyd takes the stand.
What she told me was that he had her tied to the bed, and he was sitting on top of her, and he was angry, and he had his pocket knife out, and he was cutting her on the breasts. And she, as you can imagine, cutting is a trigger for someone who's had genital circumcision, so she flipped out. And she got loose, and she started hitting him with a lamp by the bed. She jumped up and grabbed an iron that was in the room. And started beating him with that. She said he fell on the bed, and she stabbed him with scissors. She cut him up because she didn't want him to be able to enter the afterlife. The reason Egyptians wrapped their dead and mummified them was so they could enter heaven whole. She told me she hoped if she got to heaven, she would never see him there.
Omaima took the stand herself to testify in this case. And she began to share with them in a very emotional, heartfelt testimony about, first of all, her life and the continuous abuse and the trauma and the pain.
She was a victim of sexual assault, of child abuse, of female genital mutilation, and all of this trauma, cumulatively over the years, contributed to her psychological stressors that caused her to do this.
The jury deliberates for 6 days.
I was on needles and pins. I didn't know what the outcome would be.
Ultimately, they came and found her guilty with second-degree murder, and she received 25 years to life.
But Omaima's story doesn't end with the verdict.
While in prison, Omaima meets another older gentleman that's rich. And that relationship began to flourish. They became married. However, during the marriage, her husband dies, but he also leaves her with a lot of money. And now she's up for parole in 2026, and she may get her dream to finally live the American dream.
The life that she lived was brutal, and it's very clear to me that it followed her everywhere that she went.
Love only takes 1 second. One spark of attraction, one touch, one kiss, one whispered, yes.
I think she went too far.
And when you live life in a ride or die fast lane, 1 second is sometimes all that you get.
I think she was mainly scared.
But real love is built for the long haul. Moments, hours, days.
Brianna really felt like she had knew him forever.
If we're moving too fast, we run the risk of losing ourselves and our partner in the blink of an eye. In 16, a harsh winter wind blows through Chicago's Englewood neighborhood.
Englewood is on the south side of Chicago, encompasses the Englewood and West Englewood communities.
Englewood, pretty much family orientated.
Well, they're basically working people, but there was a decent amount of drugs and gang activity in that area.
On this peaceful night in Englewood, 42-year-old Renee Ballard, her 22-year-old daughter Brianna, and her niece Tamika are playing a marathon game of gin rummy.
I was winning as always, they always losing. And it was just a cool, good vibe. It was like 2-ish in the morning.
There were 3 women in the dining room that were playing cards at that time.
But just then, there's a surprise interruption.
Someone was knocking. Brianna got up and answered the door. When Brianna was at the door, we heard her and another female talking at first.
And Brianna Anderson's like, I just don't know what you're talking about.
Then the female got louder. Brianna got louder. That's what made us get up.
At that time, the other 2 women that were playing cards had came to the door.
At the door, Renee and Tamika discover Brianna face to face with a couple in their 20s. Clearly, the 2 strangers have both had a rough night.
He was like so drunk, he was leaning on the wall. And I'm like, what's going on? And she was like, somebody in this house robbed us. Like, you got the wrong house. It couldn't happen here.
Renee's explanation only makes the 2 strangers angrier at her and at each other.
They started arguing together, and she barely pushed him, and he flew down the stairs. He got up staggering drunk, coming back up the stairs. And that's when I seen the gun.
Renee doesn't hesitate.
I panicked. I snatched Brianna in the door and slammed it and locked it.
Back inside the house, the 3 women struggle to make sense of what just happened.
He just started kicking. We just heard kicking. And he started kicking and kicking and kicking.
A moment later, the front door gives in. At 4:40 a.m., an operator at Chicago's Office of Emergency Management and Communications Center logs a frantic incoming call.
I'm telling them that, someone just broke into my house. He has a gun. And now I hear chaos downstairs. Like, where they at?
The 911 operator assures Renee that help is coming.
I can only imagine how frightening that was for her and her family.
Her home attacked, her family at risk. Renee waits helplessly for assistance, praying that police will arrive in time.
This was the first time I ever felt unsafe in the house. I didn't even think they was going to get through the door.
Chicago-born and bred, Renee Ballard felt a deep pride in her city.
I'm originally from Chicago, and my grandmother was born and raised here, and she was a Chicago fan. I'm just Chicago. I don't want to go nowhere else.
In 1996, Renee moved into a modest single-family rental on South Paulina.
The home was a 2-story cinder block on the first floor, frame on the second floor type of house. Kind of like a basic Chicago home. Most homes are built similar to that.
The 2-story house may have looked modest, but Renee saw it as a home she could share with her kids and their kids.
It was me, my son, my daughter, and his girlfriend living there at the time.
Renee's extended family quickly made the place their own.
Some of the things we loved to do was cooking, barbecuing, playing cards, and just having a good time until a knock at the door. And everything just was chaos after that.
A little before 5 a.m., Chicago police officers arrive at Renee's home.
When they get to the home, they could hear screaming coming from the house.
They draw their weapons and slowly walk up the entrance steps.
In a situation like that, we're trained to go in because lives are at stake.
Once inside, they see signs of struggle as they work their way toward the living room.
They walked between the living room and dining room. They saw Charles Smith standing in the dining room with a gun in his hand. One of the police officers yelled, "Stop, drop the gun, police."
The gunman ignores their order and takes aim.
Fired a shot, and then there was just a barrage of gunfire after that.
Charles Smith reacted by shooting at them, and the police officers started to retreat, but they were also shooting back.
Once outside, the officers call for backup.
One of the officers called for a 10-1, which is an emergency response for an officer in need of assistance.
When the barrage of gunfire ends, the house falls quiet.
I was so scared.
On the south side of Chicago, 2 first responding police officers have exchanged gunshots with one of a pair of home invaders.
They barged into the house, basically, and what amounted to basically holding the family hostage.
The male half of the couple ambushed the police on the first floor of the house.
The 2 police officers backed out of the house and called for reinforcements. They did not know if they had hit the offender.
Miraculously, neither officer has been hit.
They waited until backup came in, and then they re-entered the house.
Inside the house, police discover the gunman motionless on the dining room floor.
They found Charles Smith laying face down with a gunshot wound to his right abdomen. And at that point, he was deceased.
A .40 caliber handgun lies nearby the man, and a distraught young woman cries over him. Police detain the young woman. A preliminary check tells them the man is named Charles Smith.
The woman who was with him was a woman named Breonna Patterson, and she was arrested.
What drove Smith to force his way into this house and endanger this family? His apparent accomplice, Breonna Patterson, is in no shape to provide any answers.
She was so drunk and so traumatized that police decided to hold her until she could be questioned.
Police and prosecutors know better than to rely on somebody that's as wasted as she is.
Inside her upstairs bedroom, Renee Ballard hears approaching footsteps.
My door flew open, and it was the police telling me to put my hands up, come out, and, proceeded to walk downstairs.
Once downstairs, Renee is overjoyed to discover that her family made it through safe and sound.
Renee's daughter, Breonna, took the worst of it.
Breonna was still crying. She was shaking. It was just a hard part. It was just hard to see. But she was fine physically.
Their attackers were not so lucky.
I know he was deceased because they had it blocked off, and Miss Patterson was nowhere to be found.
Officers swiftly escort the family outside. Arriving investigators begin scrutinizing the crime scene, including the 2 responding officers.
Whenever an officer is involved in a shooting now, they have to take a mandatory 30-day leave from the department.
They might work inside doing administrative duties until the investigation is over. We normally take their guns, we do ballistics on their guns to find out which officer actually fired his weapon or her weapon.
And that's regardless of whether the shooting is considered justified or out of policy.
At this moment, Chicago police are under ferocious community and media scrutiny in the wake of recent police killings.
At the end of 2015, there was a court order that forced the city of Chicago to release video of the fatal shooting of Laquan McDonald. Laquan McDonald was shot 16 times by a Chicago police officer. He was walking down a street with a knife, and the controversy surrounding that shooting was that when the shooting happened, the initial police narrative that came out about the McDonald shooting was that he had lunged at police with a knife before he was shot. An independent journalist had gotten a tip that basically there was video of this. The city's position was, well, it's under investigation, so we can't, we're not going to release the video. Eventually, the city lost that argument. What the video showed was basically something totally different of what happened.
The suppressed video clearly showed the police officer deliberately shooting McDonald in the back as he walked away. For many in the community, it was the last straw.
Well, the police department in Chicago has always had a problem with getting communities to trust them. There's a lot of people on the South and West Sides who, don't trust the police. These were such high-profile incidents, it only exacerbates that deeply rooted distrust.
For police, it's a two-way street.
Well, for the more mature crowd, the older crowd, middle-aged crowd, it helped because we were communicating with the people that lived in that neighborhood. The only issues that we had was the younger people that didn't want to have any interaction with the police whatsoever. And, with the way things were, it's a lot easier for them to sell drugs on the street than to finish school, go to college, pay for college. When it comes to a couple of bad apples, police conduct, it makes the police department initiated body cameras. And we went through retraining protocols as far as how we handle situations. So it's less hands-on and more verbal communication with people on the street.
Yet another police shooting so early in the year is a bad look for local law enforcement.
This was only within a couple months of the release of the McDonald video.
Would Charles Smith's death add fuel to the ongoing controversy?
Whenever a police shooting at that point in time happened, you could bet that the media was going to pay extra special attention to it because the police shot and killed someone.
Veteran Chicago police detective Earl Parks takes the lead role in the investigation.
I got to the home probably about 35 minutes after the incident happened. Well, when I walked into the home, I saw bullet holes in the wall, the left wall, like someone that was shooting right through the wall at someone or shooting back. I saw a card table and I saw Charles Smith on the floor. Not far from him, I saw a .40 caliber semi-automatic handgun on the floor in slide lock, which means that the person had emptied out the gun.
Outside, uniform officers begin knocking on doors.
Police are looking for anything that might make sense of this home invasion.
Neighbors confirm that while drug sales and accompanying violence may be rampant elsewhere in Inglewood, this block of South Paulina is relatively peaceful.
So on my block, it was calm, cool. The surrounding areas was the drug selling, the gang violence.
Renee Ballard and her family wait outside in separate police cars.
I know they had to figure out everything, who was who and what was what.
We take the witnesses in separately and we take any offenders in separately and put them in separate rooms so that we can hear the original story from each individual.
They're not gonna put you together because you can collaborate your stories, so they put us all in separate police cars.
But as minutes turn to hours, Renee has had enough.
We stayed in the police car for a good 3 hours. They just had us sitting there while they was doing their investigation.
Finally, Renee, her daughter Brianna, her niece, and the rest of the extended family are transported to area headquarters for interviewing.
I was mad. I wanted to go. They weren't telling us nothing. And the ordeal was just crazy.
With Brianna Patterson too drunk to question, police look forward to whatever Renee and her family have to say.
The only witnesses they had was the family. It seems inconceivable that all this happened over nothing.
What was the connection between this family and Charles Smith and Brianna Patterson that cost a young man's life? After a late-night home invasion leaves 29-year-old intruder Charles Smith dead, Chicago police are investigating what led to the fatal encounter. Though in custody for her part in the attack, 22-year-old Brianna Patterson is in no condition to provide answers.
I could see that she was shaken and she was somewhat intoxicated. So at that time, because of her condition, we had to wait and kind of let her sober up before we could interview her about the incident. So what we did was we started interviewing the other ladies in the house, the victims at that point, and gave her some time to sober up.
When we got to the police station, they put all of us in separate rooms.
Alone in an interview room, Renee Ballard struggles to make sense of what had happened earlier that morning.
I was shaken up. I still couldn't believe that this had happened to us in my house. So when the police came in and told me Mr. Smith was deceased, I didn't feel anything because of the ordeal that he just went through.
What she hears next is more of a shock.
It was like, well, Brianna is getting charged too. I'm like, Brianna? My daughter. How's she getting charged? They say, wait, we got a Brianna Anderson and a Brianna Patterson.
Renee's daughter and Charles Smith's accomplice have first names that sound exactly alike.
And they was like, no, Brianna Patterson.
Now, police want to hear from Renee's own lips just what happened inside the house on South Paulina Street.
I believe it was Renee Ballard that said he's got a gun. She shut the door and locked it, and then they ran back into the house. At that time, Charles Smith shattered the screen door and kicked in the inner security door.
Smith and Patterson barge into the house, and everyone is kind of, taking cover.
And when he kicked and the door flew in, I flew because the cordless phone was in my daughter's Brianna room. So I snatched the phone. My room was upstairs, so I ran up the stairs.
Brianna Anderson and Tamika Ross ran into the first bedroom right off of the dining room. Renee Ballard ran upstairs and called the police.
I just got on the phone calling 911, asking them to please come and help us.
From her hiding place, Renee can only hear what her daughter and niece are going through on the floor below.
My daughter, Brianna Anderson, was screaming, crying for help, telling them they had the wrong house. And I'm listening to all this. I heard her scream. I don't know if she alive or dead. I heard glass busting. I heard my daughter screaming. The screams that she was just screaming was so heartfelt.
In an adjacent interview room, Brianna Anderson describes the ordeal to police.
Brianna Patterson and Charles Smith entered the residence, at which time they found Tamika Ross and Brianna Anderson in that front bedroom just to the left of the dining room. Charles Smith was standing with the gun pointed at the two women.
Smith lunged at Brianna Anderson.
He put the gun up to her head, telling her he'll kill her and threatening her.
She's just basically pleading with her life, saying, please don't hurt me, please don't hurt me.
No, please, y'all got the wrong house. I mean, it was like I said, her screams was just so terrifying.
Not satisfied with her answers, Smith dragged the terrified young woman from the room.
Mr. Smith proceeded to take my daughter around the house looking for a perpetrator. While he was pointing a gun at her, Miss Patterson was trashing the house. She threw the TV down. She just did a lot of stuff.
Upstairs, Renee Ballard knew it was only a matter of time before she was discovered.
I thought that they was gonna come upstairs. I wouldn't have knew what to do. I probably would have really had a heart attack then.
But just then, first responders arrived on the scene.
Anderson hears squeak at the door, thinking somebody's there.
He stepped back out of the bedroom, back into the dining room, and was looking towards the front.
And then there's a gunshot and then like a barrage of gunshots. While the shots rang out, Brianna Anderson dove to the floor for cover.
In the immediate silence that followed, Renee Ballard assumed the worst.
I was so scared because I thought that he had killed, my daughter or my niece or her baby for that matter.
To her surprise, She discovers that one of the attackers is as scared as she is.
So once I heard the gun go off, Miss Patterson came upstairs asking for help for us to help her boyfriend because he had been shot. She knocked on my room door, but I never opened the door to even see who she was.
Like everything else about the assault, it simply made no sense.
I thought it was strange when she came upstairs asking for help, knowing that her man had just came in and did a home invasion. You saying he's shot and you want help from us? Like, I didn't understand that.
Individual interviews with the separated family members all tell the same story.
If there is a connection between the family and their attackers, the police haven't found it yet.
Officers drive Renee Ballard, her daughter Brianna Anderson, and the rest of the family back to the house on South Paulina.
This big ordeal had just happened, but we went home.
They're exhausted. They hadn't processed the trauma. They just wanted to be together back home.
But when they arrive home, they're quickly reminded that it will be some time before they can put the experience behind them.
So everything that they destroyed before we left, it was destroyed when we came back. They left a big pile of blood, his blood on our floor, and I couldn't believe it.
Now police have one remaining eyewitness to question, Brianna Patterson. In custody and awaiting charges, Brianna has only just sobered up enough to be interviewed on the record.
Brianna Patterson is the only person left alive that can explain what her and Charles Smith were doing there that night.
The heartbroken 20-year-old is in for an entirely new shock.
It just takes 1 second, one choice, and your whole life can change for good or bad. And Brianna's choice to back up her man.
A fatal home invasion on the south side of Chicago has left Renee Ballard's extended family picking up the pieces.
We started, getting everything back to normal, putting stuff back, throwing stuff away.
While at Chicago's Area South Police Headquarters, detectives prepared to finally interview 20-year-old Brianna Patterson about her part in the seemingly unprovoked fatal attack.
Brianna Patterson was too drunk to be questioned when police took her into custody.
We gave her some food and stuff like that, and basically just waited until her demeanor had changed.
Brianna was born and raised in West Englewood.
Englewood is like a city within a city. It's amazing how many people and places are connected there.
Growing up, the attractive young woman received plenty of attention from the boys on her block.
Brianna had a good time, for sure. Who doesn't when they're young and have the chance?
But as she grew into adulthood, Brianna Patterson knew she wanted more than just a series of hookups.
Girls oftentimes mature much faster than boys. They have to. The boys that she met were all about games and really nothing more. And Brianna knew that she needed more. She really needed for there to be a deeper connection.
Then one night at a house party, she caught a new rapper on the scene, calling himself Fifth Money. She recognized him as Charles Smith from the block. Their connection was instant.
They recognized each other from Woolcut Avenue, but they also saw and felt something beyond that shared past.
Whether he was Fifth Money on stage or Charles from the block just chilling, she felt like she knew him forever.
Within a year, both Charles and Brianna had to admit that what they had together was special and unique, that they needed to be exclusive.
The love had been there for some time. It was just that the commitment took a little bit longer to happen. Brianna was soon pregnant with Charles's baby.
Around the same time that Brianna gave birth to their son, Charles Brianna Patterson.
She knew that her boyfriend had died, but I think as she sobered up, she started to realize the ramifications of what he did and what she did.
Brianna begins by telling detectives what led her and Charles to that house in the first place.
Charles Smith and Brianna Patterson had been at that location about 3 weeks prior.
Like many of Chicago's residential neighborhoods, the homes on South Paulina Avenue are honeycombed with high-walled alleys called gangways.
Basically, it's just a sidewalk going from the front of the house to the rear alley.
A lot of people use the breezeways as a shortcut so they won't have to walk around the whole block.
So anyone can walk in between the gangways, in and out. The people who sell drugs, they tend to, at nighttime, secrete themselves in the gangways, in between the houses.
And that's just what lured Brianna Patterson and Charles Smith to South Paulina Avenue less than a month before.
She told us that they had came to buy some drugs 3 weeks earlier, and that the person that came out of that gangway at 7305 South Paulina attempted to rob them instead of sell them drugs.
Charles Smith moved quickly.
When the guy came up to him and pulled a gun out, their reaction was to hit the gas and take off.
It was a close call, but no one was harmed, including their baby who was in the back seat at the time.
Brianna says for Charles, it was unforgivable disrespect.
It was eating away at Charles Smith, that some guy tried to rob him, and he wanted to seek revenge against that guy.
Especially when he drank.
I don't think that none of that would have happened if they had not been drinking that night.
One unlucky night isn't something you obsess over. At least nobody was hurt. Put a period on it and move on.
It's not a beef, it's just random. You were scoring drugs. It comes with the territory. What did you expect?
Fast forward to January 31st, 2016. So on that night, because he had been drinking, celebrating his upcoming birthday, that still stuck in his head.
Brianna says the more he drank that night, the more Charles kept coming back to the robbery and the insult he felt. And he was convinced it had something to do with the house on South Paulina.
And they thought that the robber either went into the house or went through the house.
So he and Brianna drove past that location twice, and then he parked his vehicle across the street from that location.
Brianna tells detectives Charles ordered her out of the car.
They both got out of the vehicle and they walked over to the house and started banging on the door.
She really didn't want to do it, but he was making her do it.
I can tell by her demeanor, talking to her, she wasn't hardcore. She more or less like a young lady that followed her boyfriend into him doing something.
Miss Patterson really didn't even want to knock on the door.
Brianna Patterson tells police that she tried to defuse the situation before it started, but it all came out wrong.
So Miss Patterson and Mr. Smith got to arguing because I guess she wasn't doing things as fast as he wanted her to do them.
I think that because, she was intoxicated, she went too far.
They started arguing amongst each other. And she pushed him to the wall, and he pushed her. And when she pushed him again, that's when he flew down the stairs.
When Charles drew his gun, in the heat of the moment, Brianna says she went with it.
And she was just, had his back, so to speak.
A moment later, they were both inside, and Charles and Brianna's fates were sealed.
If you have the nerve to disrupt and terrify a whole family, you better be prepared for the whole weight of the law to come down on you.
In a police interview room, Brianna Patterson recounts the events of a drunken, violent home invasion that cost her boyfriend's life.
Once Brianna decided she was all in, she and Charles Smith beat down the door and were inside in moments.
And Miss Patterson was throwing stuff, slamming stuff. They was just doing any type of thing.
The more things she broke, the more she felt like what they were doing was right.
So she was kind of like supporting him, whatever he wanted to do.
until police arrived.
When the police came in, Charles Smith started shooting at the police. The police returned fire, and Charles Smith was struck and killed.
After the shooting, Patterson went out there and saw that Charles Smith had been shot in the stomach, and Patterson was obviously very affected by it because he was lying there dying.
Convinced police would kill her next, she ran up the stairs begging the women she'd just terrorized to help her.
I guess she finally realized it was real then.
Instead, she came downstairs to find her man dead and an army of police taking control of the scene. Now sober, sorry, and under arrest, Breonna says she was drunk. Charles was drunk. They were in the wrong, and the whole thing was a tragic case of mistaken identity.
Breonna Patterson was upset, very emotional, crying, and scared because at this time, she had sobered up and she knew how serious this was.
Ultimately, no one was hurt except Charles. Now she was left to care for their son by herself.
But it's far more serious than she realizes. Her interview concluded, detectives drop a bombshell. The state's attorney's office will seek to indict Breonna Patterson for Charles Smith's murder.
In the state of Illinois, if you take any kind of part in a crime which results in someone's death, you can also be charged with that person's death.
It's called felony murder. It basically means if you commit a crime and someone dies, it's on you.
Like if somebody robs a bank and there's some person out at the doorway watching for the police. If the person that goes in that bank shoots someone, the person that's doing the lookout is just as culpable as the person inside of the bank that shot someone.
If she's convicted on a charge of felony murder, Breonna Patterson will spend the rest of her life in jail for killing her man, Charles Smith.
So in that incident with Breonna Patterson, she took part in the crime of the home invasion. She went in with Charles Smith. She interrogated the victims. She knocked over TVs, trying to intimidate them.
At the same time, an exhaustive internal investigation about the shooting itself has finished.
We have to basically track every bullet that comes out of an officer's gun. All the pegs have to fall into place. If not, then now you're looking at suspension, fired, or in some cases, we can go to jail if we do something that we're not supposed to do.
The internal review concludes that the two officers handled the hostage situation entirely by the book. Renee Ballard and Breonna Anderson completely agree.
They were relieved when the police got there because they were in fear of their life. I mean, Charles Smith was pointing the gun at their heads.
Breonna Anderson praised the police response and basically said that had they not responded, everything for her probably could have taken a turn for the worse.
The cops saved her life.
Grand jury subpoenas in hand, Renee and her family wait their turn to give testimony that may lead to a life sentence for Breonna Patterson.
Me, Tamika, and Breonna was in the waiting room that they have us in. And one at a time, they called our names, and we went in front of the grand jury to testify about the ordeal.
Based on the evidence, the grand jury elects to indict Breonna Patterson on the felony murder charge.
So because of her active participation in the home invasion, she was charged with felony murder, even though she wasn't the one who killed Smith. In addition to that, she was charged with home invasion.
If she's convicted at trial, Breonna could spend the rest of her life in prison.
I know that's how the law works. If you're with someone and they do a crime, and you're with them, that's accessory, so you're going down too.
Charles Smith, aka rapper Fifth Money, is dead. The victim of a gunshot wound he sustained at the hands of police while engaged in a chaotic and violent home invasion. But now, Charles's grieving girlfriend and accomplice must bear the legal weight of a killing she herself didn't commit.
So I knew Miss Patterson was going to get some time because she was with him.
I mean, I actually felt bad that she ended up getting charged with that crime because I think she was only 20 years old at that time.
But on the eve of trial, Breonna's fate takes another turn.
A lot of times the state's attorney will come to you and they'll offer you a deal.
What ended up happening in this case is that she ended up pleading guilty to home invasion, which in itself is a very serious crime. There's a reason that can lead to serious prison time, because you're basically disrupting someone's sanctuary and, threatening to take their life away in many of those cases.
On December 20th, 2017, Breonna Patterson is transported to Logan Correctional Center to begin doing her time for home invasion with a firearm.
In this case, she was sentenced to 18 years in prison.
She was granted parole in May of 2023. In the years since Charles Smith's death, Chicago has shown signs of change.
In 2021, the state of Illinois changed part of the felony murder statute where if two people are committing a crime and during the course of that crime, a third party intervenes and kills one of the participants in that crime, the surviving participant cannot be charged with felony murder. It's very likely that had this crime was committed now, she would not have been charged with felony murder.
Nowadays, we wear body-worn cameras. They have cameras in the vehicles. The police department has evolved, and we are held to a higher standard when we get involved into police shootings.
Renee Ballard ultimately realized that in order to move on, she needed a change of her own.
6 months later, I moved, where it's security, or you guys get buzzed up. Nothing that you could just walk straight up to my house and boom, you're there. I feel Miss Patterson was feared for her life as well. That's probably why she did go as far as she did with the situation with him. The alcohol, that's all I can say.
And I think that was mostly because of being under the influence at that time. But, some people, when they get intoxicated and stuff like that, they make the wrong decisions.
It's only natural to want more when we're in love and living the life. For love or money, of all the 7 deadly sins, lust and greed fit together like hand and glove.
She was in the streets as far as stripping and making money.
Providing each other's needs on a very basic level.
Valuing love and money equally can blur the line between which is which.
She feels like she was manipulated into this situation.
She would just collaborate with him for money. I don't think she was unaware.
And between what's right and what's wrong.
Right is right, wrong is wrong.
How much is too high a price to pay for love?
People are shooting within the house. People have gone outside and started shooting as well.
I was tracking him down like a dog, pretty much.
And how many lies must we tell ourselves to justify choices we make in the name of money, but are really for the sake of our heart?
Whatever the situation was, it could have been prevented.
March 14th, 2016, St. Louis, Missouri. It's just after dark on Natural Bridge Avenue in the city's North Side neighborhood.
Natural Bridge Avenue runs the length of North St. Louis.
This area of St. Louis is known to have a very high crime and murder rate.
Suddenly, gunshots shatter the quiet evening. St. Louis Metropolitan Police's 911 call center is swamped.
One caller doesn't just give the location where the shots were fired, he gives the name of the victim.
The 911 operator instantly recognizes the name, Andre Dre Montgomery Jr.
At 21, Dre Montgomery is a national reality TV star.
Dre is the grandson of Robbie Montgomery, star of Welcome to Sweetie Pies. Anyone who watched the show would instantly recognize Dre Montgomery's name.
911 dispatches officers and EMS to the scene. Will they arrive in time to save a youngest member of a show business dynasty? Andre Montgomery was born in San Diego, California, to Andre Montgomery Sr. and Michelle Griggs.
Andre was born on my birthday, October the 14th.
But even before his due date, Dre's life was marked by tragedy.
Little Dre was 8 months old when his dad passed away. When Big Dre died, he was murdered.
In the aftermath of the tragedy, Michelle Griggs relocated newborn Dre and her 3 other children to her hometown of Lubbock, Texas.
With what she's been through, Michelle needed the emotional support of her family in Texas.
Family, especially baby Dre, became Michelle's anchor.
Andre and Big Dre share the same traits. Andre looked spit image like his dad. In their personalities, always telling jokes, just lively.
He'll do something to make you laugh, do something to make you mad.
And just like Big Dre, Little Dre looked out for his family.
He just really cared about his family, so we had a really good relationship.
And Big Dre's family, headed by local St. Louis celebrity Robbie Montgomery, was there for them, too.
I really appreciate a lot of things that she would talk to me about, that I have to keep going on regardless because my kids depend on me. She gave me a lot of motherly advice.
Ms. Robbie positively doted on Little Dre.
She spoiled him. She would send him big, elaborate gifts for Christmas. They always knew that the bigger box was for Andre.
I believe Robbie loved him because that was her oldest son, and he looked just like his dad.
Around the age of 7 or so, Andre started to actually go to stay in St. Louis with Miss Robbie for the summer or for certain holidays.
Dre's relationship with his uncle, Tim Norman, proved just as important.
James Timothy Norman is Miss Robbie's second son.
Tim was a positive role model for Dre. Dre looked up to Tim.
With Miss Michelle's blessing, Dre was brought into the St. Louis Sides family business, a successful chain of restaurants, and Welcome to Sweetie Pies, a wildly popular reality show about Robbie and Tim running them as mother and son.
The Welcome to Sweetie Pies show ran for nearly a decade.
She said, we got the show going on, and I've been mentioning about my grandson, and people want to know and meet who Andre is.
Eventually, there was some conversation between the family members, between the Griggs family and the Montgomery family about Andre coming from Texas to stay in St. Louis and finish out high school with Miss Robbie.
You're out of Lubbock, your grandma is pretty well loved, so maybe you have better resources over there that we don't have here.
With his grandma Robbie and Uncle Tim's help, Dre finished high school and became a central character on Welcome to Sweetie Pies.
You had Miss Robbie, who was older, so you had the seniors. You had Tim, who was in his 30s at the time, and you had Charles and Andre, who connected with the younger audience.
Now, St. Louis police are rushing to Andre Montgomery's aid. Outside the house, first responders encounter a young man still conscious, despite gunshot wounds in his arm and upper chest. But it's not Dre Montgomery.
Bystanders had told her that Dre Montgomery has gone back inside.
Police followed a trail of blood that led directly to the dining room.
In the dining room, Dre Montgomery lies face down, bleeding from his chest and lower back.
Andre was pronounced dead on the scene.
What could have happened here? Who wanted Dre Montgomery dead, and why? An epic search for answers will uncover a diabolical conspiracy fueled by greed and lies. Years old, aspiring rapper Andre Montgomery had already brought joy into thousands of lives.
Dre was one of the stars of a hugely popular reality TV show, Welcome to Sweetie Pies, alongside with his grandma, Robbie Montgomery, and his uncle, Tim Norman.
But on March 14, 2016, investigators in North St. Louis arrive at the scene to find one man injured and Dre Montgomery dead.
Police investigators see shell casings scattered across the grass in the front of the home. As well as when they enter the home, they see other bullet casings as well as Andre's body.
Detectives discovered one handgun on the kitchen floor, 2 more alongside a rifle on the bed, and a 3rd handgun on top of the dresser.
Preliminary examination of the shell casings, both inside and out, suggests multiple shooters.
The fact that there was more than one shooter indicates that it's possible this is gang-related.
St. Louis Metro Police interview each of the 7 people in the house at the time of the shootings.
Andre was in a recording session in the basement working on some music tracks.
While in the basement studio, Andre receives that call saying, "Hey, I'm here."
Dre's friends say it sounded like a woman on the other end of the phone.
Dre's friend says he was actually expecting a call, but they had no knowledge of the woman that he spoke to.
Dre then responds to them saying, "I'll be right back." Dre then exits the home alone, and a few minutes later, they hear the gunfire ringing out.
Dre's friends admit that after Dre was shot outside, the second shooting happened inside.
When they heard the shots at Dre, the young man who was in the back bedroom with his 2-year-old daughter grabbed his handgun and started to come out of his room and then proceed through the house to see what was happening. At that point, he sees a gun, and it was dark. Well, come to find out, that was a friend of Dre's who actually was coming up as well to try to defend the people that were in the house. At that point, everyone is rushing into the dining room. People are shooting within the house. People have gone outside and started shooting as well. And Andre, all the while, is laid in that dining room floor.
The young man that police first encountered outside was actually shot inside. And Andre, even though he was discovered inside, was shot outside.
Officers find Dre's wallet untouched and his phone in the vestibule where he apparently dropped it while staggering back into the house.
Clearly, this was not a robbery. It's actually looking like an ambush.
Detectives focus on the phone call that brought Dre out in the first place.
They were able to see the last person that he had spoken to just minutes before his life was taken.
A short time before he was killed, Dre exchanged a series of phone calls and texts with a single contact.
After the police were able to obtain access to Andre Montgomery's phone, they immediately were able to discover the last contact in his phone, which was listed as Alexis the Great.
Dre's final text was the address of the studio. Detectives surmised that Dre's murderer arrived by car, lured him outside with a call, shot him, and escaped the way they arrived.
The bullet casing, the eye and ear witness descriptions suggested that Dre Montgomery met someone outside before being shot.
Was Alexis the Great Dre's killer or just the bait? Detectives contact a judge to arrange a subpoena for Dre's service provider to reveal just who Alexis the Great is, and in the meantime, there remains the heartbreaking business of identifying the body.
They say I passed out. I don't know. But I knew that it hurt.
She was in like physical pain. You know, she was nonstop crying. If something I could say or do that would stop her pain. So, you know, that was probably one of the most difficult parts of my life.
When detectives ask Miss Robbie if Dre had been involved in anything unusual, she tells them that not long before the shooting, someone broke into her home.
Because her alarm system had been deactivated, that limited the suspects to Miss Robbie, Tim, and Andre. At the time when her house was burglarized, Miss Robbie was in LA with her son, Tim Norman, while Andre was still in St. Louis, and so they immediately accused Andre of breaking into the house, which he denied vehemently.
Dre's Texas family didn't believe it for a second.
When Robbie's house got broken into, she called me and she told me that she found out that Dre was the one that had robbed her. And I was like, when would Dre rob you?
He's not a thief. He doesn't steal. He'll ask to borrow $20 versus him taking money. He's never been anyone to steal anything from anybody.
Dre had actually returned to St. Louis in order to clear his name with a polygraph test.
Only reason why Andre came back is because he wanted to prove to his grandma that he loved it. He did not do that.
Andre was cleared by the St. Louis Police Department of having any involvement with the burglary based on his polygraph results.
So far, nothing's adding up.
Who want to hurt my brother? Did he get set up? Did he get jumped? Was it for the money? Did he get robbed? Did his friends set him up?
Everything pointed back to the mystery woman who had called Dre just before he was shot.
Police in St. Louis, Missouri are on the trail of an unidentified female who lured 21-year-old rapper and reality TV star Andre Montgomery to his death.
All they have to go on is a series of phone calls and texts from a phone contact, Alexis DeGreat.
St. Louis homicide digital forensics specialists analyzing Dre Montgomery's phone make a breakthrough discovery.
The final text and calls to Dre's phone from Alexis DeGreat were made from a burner phone.
It turns out that Alexis DeGreat had been in contact with Dre in the days leading up to the murder, and she called and texted Dre from an actual registered cell phone.
A new subpoena reveals a name, Terica Tanisha Ellis.
Terica Ellis was an exotic dancer based in Memphis, Tennessee.
St. Louis police contact their counterparts in Memphis.
Memphis police confirmed that Terica Ellis had a pair of vice convictions on her record, but nothing more.
Despite the tantalizing new evidence, police have to play a waiting game. They issue a bolo for Terica Ellis.
We know the last person he talked to. He might not do anything. And that's when I started realizing that St. Louis, had a lot of violent crimes there, so a lot of people was getting murdered as well.
So once they would work on Andre's case, they would get a call to go out to another case. So they'll try to get on top of that one before that one would get lost.
Dre's grieving mother made solving her son's murder her mission in life.
I wasn't about to let him be a statistic, and I told him that. I said he would not be a statistic. He would not be a box that you're going to put on the shelf, sit there and get dust without me finding out who did this.
Dre's mother contacted St. Louis police almost daily.
My mom, she kept calling. She would call and call and call. We'll talk on the phone just randomly. I'll like, hey, Mom, did you call?
I will continue to call. I will continue to pray at night. I will continue to tell God what I want. And if I didn't get the answers, I just kept faith. And I kept calling. And I kept calling.
In her nearly daily calls to St. Louis, Miss Michelle shared something else with police.
Miss Michelle and the rest of Dre's Lubbock family were very surprised by the way that his Uncle Tim had responded after the murder.
When Andre passed, Tim did not reach out to me when Andre passed. Not at all.
And at Dre's Lubbock church service and burial, Tim Norman seemed disconnected.
Tim shook my hand and he looked down when he kind of shook my hand, and I thought that was odd. As a man to man, you look a man in his eyes when you shake his hand. It's just the way I was raised.
But overworked St. Louis police need concrete leads, not suspicions.
When I had talked to detectives, they thought it was just like a little family squabble. They never really paid it to mind.
Tim Norman wasn't even in St. Louis the day that Dre Montgomery was killed, and why would he want his nephew dead in the first place?
For more than 2 years, Dre's family's nightmare of not knowing continues.
My life became just, trying to figure out what happened to my brother, because we, just trying to get the answer. Trying to get closure is what it is. I was just trying to get closure.
And I would call him, and I would talk to him, and I would get the same thing over and over and over. It's a cold case. We can't go no forward.
If that's what it was that'll make me stop hating the world, stop being so dark and stop being so evil, just to see what happened to my brother.
Then, finally, police catch another break. And this time, it might just move the needle. St. Louis Metro Police detectives get a call about the case from a surprising place: their own system's jail.
Deputies assigned to sift through inmate calls had learned something they needed to pass along.
An inmate held in the county jail was recorded on a phone call with his brother.
The inmate's brother was bragging about how he killed a man for money.
The recording captured Travell Hill laughing about a shooting that earned him $5,000, and he names his victim, Andre Montgomery.
This could be the key to the mystery of Dre Montgomery's murder.
What detectives subsequently discover will put them back on the trail to Terica Ellis. For almost 2 years, Andre Montgomery's murder during a recording session in North St. Louis has gone unsolved.
Dre was shot the day he went outside to meet a woman whom he had exchanged calls and texts with.
Police have potentially identified the woman as Terica Ellis, but a nationwide bolo has yet to turn up the Memphis-born exotic dancer.
She had to surface eventually. All it could take was a traffic stop.
In the meantime, a tip from within the St. Louis Division of Corrections might just break the case wide open.
A man named Travell Hill was bragging about Dre Montgomery's murder with his incarcerated brother.
He had a prior criminal history, but none of them were violent crimes. They were all drug related.
When detectives confront Hill with what they know from his phone call, the reluctant hitman caves almost immediately.
For him to go to that next level of taking another human's life was really something that was hard for him to grapple with.
Travell Hill said he was paid $5,000 to kill Dre Montgomery.
And when detectives ask him who paid him, he freely admits that, too.
He was paid the $5,000 by Tim Norman, Dre's uncle.
Travell Anthony Hill was approached by one of Tim's confidants and told that Tim had said that he needed to take the life of Andre.
Tim Norman tells Travell that he'll be contacted shortly and told where to find Dre Montgomery, but that contact won't come from him. It will be via a woman, Terica Ellis.
Terica Ellis is from Memphis, Tennessee. She is one of 3 children. She has a brother and a sister. She was very close to her mom and had some relationship with her father as well. It is also reported that Terica did not have a picture-perfect life. It was expressed that she experienced many abuses by the men in her life, both emotionally and sexually. Terica Ellis was also a teen parent.
From what I understand, she was in the streets as far as stripping and making money and stuff like that.
In the early 2000s, Terica started to really get into her career in the adult industry by becoming a featured exotic dancer, traveling across the country, as well as escorting on the side.
One of Terica's regular spots was a string of Illinois stripper bars just across the river from St. Louis. It was there that she encountered a man who would change her life forever.
Eventually, her career in exotic dancing and escorting led her to meet Tim Norman at the Bottoms Up Club in Brooklyn, Illinois. Within a couple days, they had their first hookup, which led them into a multi-year situationship.
At first, Terica saw Tim solely as a regular source of income.
She's going to be attracted to that money and fame because it's there. So as long as it's there, she's going to be there.
Tim, a married father, liked the no strings attached policy Terica agreed to.
I think Tim's attraction to Terica was accessibility.
But their relationship began to take on a special meaning to a woman that had struggled to get the finer things out of life for herself and her daughter.
I feel like Terica fell for Tim, or was like falling for his goofiness, because she seen, oh, you know, he is on TV.
You think it's all about the money at first, but when people stay close for that long, there's usually something going on underneath.
In this unique situationship, honestly, both Tim and Terica were just providing each other's needs on a very basic level.
Terica tried to tell herself that this was strictly a friends with benefits situation, but she grew to really care about Tim Norman.
Tim, in turn, grew to rely on Terica, and it wasn't just for sex.
Tim knew that she was somebody that he can kind of control and make do what he wanted her to do.
Travell Hill says that when Andre Montgomery returned to St. Louis in the spring of 2016, a chance encounter with Terica sealed his fate.
She had met Andre, I think, that day before.
And when Tim Norman learned that Terica had caught Andre's eye, he used her as bait.
Tim then asked Terica if she would be able to reach out to Andre and see if he would respond. Tim then dictated what Terica should text to Dre. Dre responds, and from there on, the back and forth was orchestrated by Tim.
Travell says Terica kept texting with Andre until he agreed to meet her and forwarded his address at the Natural Bridge Avenue studio.
It was tracking him down like a dog, pretty much.
Terica forwarded the address to Tim.
He gives her the further instructions, which were to text Andre from the burner phone and tell him to only communicate with her from that phone number from that point on, because her other phone was no longer working. Tim communicates that to Terica, who then gives Travell the address on Natural Bridge. Travell shows up, parks his car around the corner down the street, stays in wait in the gangway between the houses.
Andre gets the call from Terica that he's been waiting for and comes outside.
Andre goes to Terica's car, is in there a minute or two, returns, and as Andre is walking in the home, Travell takes aim, shoots at him 5 times, and then Travell takes off running around the corner, jumping into his car, and he reported that he went straight to a bar and drank himself into oblivion.
Travell tells police he never saw Terica again.
He finally received his compensation a couple days later.
Detectives now know who killed Andre Montgomery, who tracked him, and who wanted him dead. The remaining question is, why?
As they started digging more into it, they started uncovering a whole bunch of stuff, that was there in plain sight.
So at that point, the motive was definitely money.
Detectives in St. Louis, Missouri have been searching for answers in the Andre Montgomery murder case.
Dre was gunned down outside of a recording studio in North St. Louis at 8 p.m.
Now, with confessed gunman Travell Hill in custody, police are convinced they've also identified the mastermind behind the crime.
They know Tim had something to do with it, but they couldn't prove it at that time.
The murder-for-hire case, with several key players in different states, attracts the attention of the FBI.
You have 3 people scattered over 3 states, all using cell phones to carry out a murder conspiracy.
But missing pieces remain. Just what was Tim Norman's motive for engineering this deadly trap?
Tim Norman risked everything, paying thousands of dollars to Terica and Travell. Why?
You can't prove guilt without motive, and so far there's no clear motive.
I think it's really hard to gauge when the issue started with Andre and Tim. Tim maybe had a level of jealousy with Andre the entire time.
After years of calling St. Louis police for updates, Michelle Griggs receives a call of her own from St. Louis Metro Homicide.
Detective Murphy called me, and he was like, do you know anything about a life insurance on your son? And I was like, no.
Tim Norman had attempted to apply for 5 separate life insurance policies through various insurance agencies for Andre Montgomery.
When Dre moved to St. Louis to complete high school, Tim Norman used the opportunity to obtain his ID and Social Security information.
Tim reached back out to her and said, hey, by the way, I'll need a copy of his birth certificate, his Social Security number, and some other personal documentation.
With that information, Tim was able to get the life insurance on Andre.
Detectives were finally able to determine that Tim Norman had in fact been at the helm of the murder-for-hire plot against his very own nephew, Andre Montgomery.
Using federal subpoena power, FBI agents dig into Terica Ellis's finances and document that in the days immediately after the murder, Ellis deposited about $9,000 across several bank accounts in her name. Investigators suspect that money was her cut from the murder for hire of Dre Montgomery.
It takes a while to tie it all together. The cell call, the text, the burner phone, the deposits.
On August 20th, 2020, Miss Michelle gets another call from police.
I got an outside phone call, and it was Detective Rudolph. He said, just wanted you to know we just arrested Terica. I screamed and I shouted for joy.
And just 24 hours later, there's more good news.
Phone rang again, and it was Detective Rudolph. And he said, just want you to know we have arrested Tim Norman for the murder of your son, Andre Montgomery. It was victory, praise. My prayers came true because we've been knowing Tim did it, but the world didn't know.
In custody, Tim Norman admits nothing, but Terica cooperates fully.
When Terica Ellis was arrested, she was a key piece of this puzzle.
Terica tells detectives that it all started in the aftermath of a hookup with Tim Norman.
She was telling Tim that she was trying to open up a boutique in Memphis and had plans to travel to LA in a few weeks to go to the garment district to purchase products for her store.
Terica wanted out of the escort game and believed that Tim Norman wanted that for her too.
He then asked Terica if she was familiar with his nephew, and Terica tells him that in fact she was, because Andre had been a patron in the Bottoms Up Club and had tipped her a lot of cash in the weeks prior.
Tim Norman could now put his murder-for-hire plan into action. At Tim's insistence, Terica reaches out to Dre, giving him her new number with a burner phone Tim bought her.
Terica then travels to the La Quinta Inn Hotel where Andre was located. She spends less than 10 minutes there talking to Dre, finding out what he's up to and what he's planning for the day.
She never mentioned that Tim was looking for him. She never mentioned that Tim was in St. Louis. She didn't mention anything about Tim. She made something like it was all about her wanting to be with Andre, wanting to hang out with Andre.
Terica insists that she believed that Tim was just looking to get his mother's property back.
Terica says that she did not know that Tim had the intention of taking Andre's life, and she thought that Tim only wanted her to find Dre so that he could have Dre confronted to admit to where Miss Robbie's items were from the burglary of her home.
The worst she assumed was that Dre was going to get a beatdown.
Fast forward, Tim gives Terica the okay, saying that his boys are ready. Terica then reaches out to Dre to say, where are you exactly now? Dre then informs her that he is at the address on the Natural Bridge.
And my brother was he was oblivious to anything. It was a regular day for him in St. Louis. He had no worries. He was just a regular day, just a regular day.
Upon Terica conveying that information to Tim Norman, he responds and tells her, from here on out, reach out to my boy directly and give him the address where you will be going. We later find out that that person was Travell Anthony Hill.
Everything lined up perfectly for Tim. Before this, my brother had no chance to survive. He had so many people looking for him and tracking him down.
Terica tells investigators that she'd spent the afternoon shopping and checking in with Andre.
They start talking about Dre being in need of an outfit, and she offered to purchase him an expensive pair of jeans.
And it was the jeans that lured Dre outside the home studio on Natural Bridge Avenue.
She arrives at the address on Natural Bridge. She has communicated with Travell and they have coordinated. Terica calls Dre, lets him know that she is outside with his jeans. Dre then comes outside. He gets in the car with Terica. There's some small talk that lasted less than 2 to 3 minutes. And Terica says that Andre's phone rang, and as it rang, he answered and started to get out of the car. Right before Travell Anthony Hill takes his first shot, he texts Terica as Andre is getting out of the car to move. She then immediately, as she says, peeled off, and she instantly started hearing gunshots.
Terica insists that she'd never been more shocked and scared in her life.
After hearing those gunshots while driving away, Terica calls Tim Norman and says, "What the F?" And she asks, "Should I go back and check on Dre?" Tim Norman responds and says, "No, get out of town, get on the highway, go to Memphis, and don't come back to St. Louis, and toss that burner phone."
Armed with confessions from Terica Ellis and Travell Hill, investigators quickly secure indictments for Tim Norman and his co-conspirators. But will a conviction be as easy to obtain?
At the time I wasn't happy, but there's nothing I can do it because I already said that whatever his will be done.
In September of 2022, 6 years after Andre Montgomery was gunned down on a North St. Louis street, the man accused of orchestrating his murder is about to face a jury.
The trial was a long time in coming, and then the pandemic pushed it back even further.
But as Dre's family takes their seats in the courtroom, they're reminded that Tim Norman still maintains his innocence.
When we first walked into the courtroom, they had our family next to Tim.
I don't know if that was by mistake or an accident, but, we was sitting right there in the first row, and I was just staring at him, just staring.
Ugh, it made me so upset. I was thinking all kinds of ways, you just right here. You just right here. If I could just get a hold of you, And
he was looking around, and we made eye contact again, and I think he lipped. I didn't do it.
He did this to my older brother, I didn't do it.
It was real quick, and I'm like, did he just really just do that? And I was thinking, did I just really see that?
Right out of the gate, the prosecution insists otherwise.
It is very clear and was made clear through the trial that James Timothy Norman was in fact the mastermind, primarily because of the fact that he is the only person who was connected to all 3 co-conspirators.
The testimony of Tim's co-conspirators seals the deal.
Terica Ellis and Travell Hill both take the stand. Together, they paint a vivid picture of Tim Norman's conspiracy and actions.
I knew that the evidence stacked against him was overwhelming. It was just, throughout the whole trial process, it's like, man, there's so much information that came out. There's no way he could be found, anything but guilty.
On September 16th, 2022, after 7 days of testimony, the jury hands down its verdict. Tim Norman conspired to have Andre Montgomery murdered and committed insurance fraud.
When I heard the guilty verdict, I was excited. I was so happy. I couldn't even contain it, but the judge told us no outbursts.
It was like, okay, finally, we got justice for my brother, Andre.
We all got up after the jury left, and we got in our family prayer circle, and we prayed, and we did our intense yes, because we got victory.
Tim's subsequent sentencing was a victory lap for Dre's family.
When they told us Tim got a double life sentence plus 20 years, couldn't get no better than that. If the death penalty was available, I wish he would have got that. But living in prison forever, you'll never be able to harm or hurt nobody else.
I think my mom, she, her job was done. She got justice for Andre. He wasn't going to be another statistic.
Terica's sentence, negotiated as part of a plea deal, is not as well received.
When Terica was sentenced for 3 years, including the time she already served, I wasn't happy. But at the same time, as a family, we fasted and prayed, and we let God, let your will be done.
The 3 years that she got, they angered us, but we understood why, talking to the team, that we was after the bigger fish in Tim, which is obviously the main point we wanted to get, but we still felt that she should have got more time than what she got.
Travell Hill's plea deal earns him a 32-year sentence.
Through this entire process, Terica definitely
दिल भी टूटिया आस भी मुकी जहाँ बेकदरा यारा असला संग जने की करिए असला संग जने की वे करिए नस्ला तक नहीं भूल दे बेनस्ला संग ने की करिए उल्टियां चाला चल दे बेनस्ला संग ने की वे करिए उल्टियां चाला चल दे पालन सौखे होंदे ओके पालन मापे पिछली उमरी इस नुक्ते दी समझ आ जांदी आपे पिछली उमरी इस नुक्ते दी समझ आ जांदी आपे बोते यार बनावण वाले बोते यार बनावण वाले रह जाते ने कल्ले असां ते लुक लुक रोंदे देखे पकड़े आना पल्ले असां ते ओ लुक लुक रोंदे देखे पकड़े आना पल्ले गई ओ जवानी आया वे बुढ़ापा जाग पईया सब पीड़ा हुण किस कम मोहम्मद बख्शा सौंफ जवैड़ हरीड़ा हुण किस कम मोहम्मद बख्शा सौंफ जवैड़ हरीड़ा खबर नी माड़ी आवाज़ां देंदिया मेरे मज़माना देप तलाई मिटी दिए पत्थरां दा विसराना देप तलाई मिटी दिए पत्थरां दा विसराना पर पर कूका मिटिया पांदे पत नहीं पांदे तेरा पढ़ दरूद करावल जादे पत नहीं पांदे तेरा हिजर तेरा जे पानी मंगे हिजर तेरा जे पानी मंगे खून ना दे गेना दिल करदा तेनू कोल बिठा के दर्द पुराने छेड़ा दिल करदा तेनू कोल बिठा के दर्द पुराने छेड़ा मैदान कयामत वाले हर कोई लेखा परसी बिच मैदान कयामत वाले हर कोई लेखा परसी सजना कोलो सवारी हो जांदी यार यारा दा गिला नहीं कर दे असल परीत जिना दी यार यारा दा गिला नहीं कर दे असल परीत जिना दी ले हुण यार अवाले रब दे देवे इजाजत राया दिल दी नगरी खाली हो गई कंड कीती जद पाया दिल दी नगरी वे खाली हो गई कंड कीती जद पाया कंड कीती जद पाया कंड कीती जद पाया बेकदरा नल प्यार वदा के बेकदरा नल प्यार वदा के दुख वे उठाया पारा दिल भी टूटिया आस भी मुकी जहाँ बेकदरा यारा दिल भी टूटिया आस भी मुकी जहाँ बेकदरा यारा